Hey everybody, Brian Shea here, talking today about the Salesforce Architect role, and I wanted to talk through kind of a few different ways this role can be used beyond sort of I'll say kind of the standard way that many organizations think about using this role. So many organizations think about the Salesforce Architect role as sitting kind of squarely in the design phase of a project, where the architect is responsible for designing the Salesforce org, designing the data model, designing the automations, designing the integrations, potentially leading the way on product or cloud selection. And then the architect's work is kind of handed over to an implementation team to implement that design. So that's certainly one model for how to deploy an architect, but there's a few others that I wanted to introduce as well. And I'd say one of the key ideas with the architect is it's really meant to be a high leverage role. So when we think about sort of an architect on a house, right, we've got the architect is producing the design, and then it's handed over to general contractor to build the house, a team to build the house. So we're really trying to use the architect to get the most leverage out of that team that's building the house. So that concept of leverage, I think, is really important when we think about a Salesforce architect. So when we think about some other ways to deploy an architect, I want to keep that concept of leverage in mind. So one way is to bring the architect in to help to scope a project. So I've talked elsewhere about this idea that the architect is one of the few people on the team that sort of has the capability to understand the business need, also understand the technical options that can be brought to bear to address that business need, and also understands the costs and the risks associated with those various technical options to address that problem. So that architect is really sitting in a very unique position to understand what would be the best way and the lowest risk way to scope a project so it delivers a lot of business value with hopefully minimal risk. So having the architect really play a key role in helping to shape the scope of an initiative is a really powerful way to leverage that architect role. So that's one. Okay, recommendation number 2 for leveraging a Salesforce architect is to have the architect help to define the roles and responsibilities within your Salesforce team. So oftentimes Salesforce architects have quite a bit of experience. They've worn a lot of hats, and they're familiar either hands-on or by working sort of in tandem with different roles. They're very familiar with the different kinds of work an admin does, different kinds of work a senior admin does, a business analyst, a developer, all these various types of work and responsibilities. And what the architect can do is kind of look deeply at the types of projects and responsibilities that your team is doing and kind of match up and break down those types of work into specific responsibilities and kind of match up the skills and interests of your team members with those various responsibilities. And they can also help to identify any skill gaps that you may have. So that's another great way to leverage Salesforce Architect. Okay, so the third idea for leveraging the Salesforce Architect role for organizations that are embarking on a new kind of initiative for them, or a kind of a cutting edge initiative, it can be really valuable to have the architect play a more active, more hands-on role in that kind of a project. So let's take an example. Let's say we've got an organization that's never built an integration with Salesforce before. They've never done that kind of work before. They don't have experience in it. It can be powerful to have the architect play the role of not only doing the design for that initiative, but also being hands-on, much more hands-on in the implementation, or maybe even executing the implementation themselves. And there's a couple reasons why this can be a powerful model. Number one, this kind of initiative is by its nature a higher risk initiative. If the organization hasn't done this kind of project before, it's going to be higher risk. And having an experienced architect being more hands-on helps increase our probability of success. The second reason, and maybe even more powerful than the first reason, is the architect's really in a good position to help to hand over that kind of initiative to the rest of the team for maintenance, for subsequent enhancements, for doing that kind of project in the future. You can almost think of it like the architect can sort of create a blueprint for how the rest of the Salesforce team can do that kind of work in the future. So really powerful for not only increasing the probability of success on the initial cutting edge project, but also to help the rest of the team get involved and own that kind of work moving forward after the initial project. So I hope these 3 ideas helped, and I hope you have a great day.